Welcome back to Something in the Shadows. We want to thank you for the continued support as we have recently surpassed 300 subscribers. To celebrate, we will be revisiting one of our more popular videos and expanding on it. Welcome to 30 Disturbing Facts About Jeffrey Dahmer. Subscribe for weekly videos. Fact 1: Jeffrey Dahmer was neglected when he was a child. When determining how one came to be a serial killer, trauma experts often look at the past and examine the experiences and traumas that this person may have had. This is because the traumas can become triggers later when the person has grown up. While examining Jeffrey Dahmer, the experts wanted to determine if Dahmer was just a psychopath or if the traumas in his life influenced the way he turned out. It was discovered that the serial killer was neglected a lot as a child because his parents did not get along well, and this meant that they were constantly quarreling. This means that he was not given the attention he deserved, and also, his mother had mental issues, which meant that he did not care for him well. Fact 2: He had multiple disorders from his crimes. It is evident that something was wrong with Jeffrey Dahmer. This was backed up by the psychiatric evaluations done on him before he was put on trial. The evaluations revealed that Dahmer suffered from a schizotypal personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, and several other psychotic disorders. Fact 3: He drew inspiration from his father. Jeffrey Dahmer's father was a supervisor at PPG Industries, which was a company in Ohio City. Attached to the analytical department of the company, Lionel taught his son many things like how to dissect raccoons and possums. This means that Jeffrey learned how to dissect a body from an early age. He also learned how to preserve the body. His father thought he was teaching him these things to persuade him, and instead, Jeffrey used his knowledge on his victims. Fact 4: While in school, Dahmer had his own fan club. Jeffrey Dahmer was popularly known as the class clown while he was in school. This is because he had a great sense of humor and also fascinated his fellow classmates with his pranks, which included pretending to have seizures. The students were fascinated by his antics that they formed the Dahmer fan club, where they encouraged him to do the antics. Years later, after what Dahmer did was revealed, the students were shocked as they did not think that the silly antics that they were doing in school would turn out to be that sinister. Fact 5: He plotted his first attack when he was 16 years old. When Jeffrey Dahmer was 16 years old, he plotted how he was going to attack a man that ran past his house while on a jog. The serial killer developed a crush on a jogger that passed in front of his house and decided to attack him. Dahmer hid behind the bushes with a baseball bat which he intended to hit the man with and then proceed to act out his rape fantasy. As luck would have it, the man did not go for his jog that day, and Dahmer gave up on that plan after he did not appear. Fact 6: He killed his first victim after graduating high school. Just 3 weeks after graduating high school, Dahmer killed his first victim. With his parents having divorced in 1978, Jeff was left alone in the house as his father moved out of the house and his mother had taken his younger brother and moved elsewhere. On June 18, 1978, Dahmer invited Stephen Hicks to his house where they had drinks together. When Stephen wanted to leave, Dahmer did not like the idea and proceeded to hit him on the head with a dumbbell. The hitchhiker lost consciousness and Dahmer went on to strangle him until he died. He then removed his clothes and masturbated over his body before proceeding to dissect it and buried the parts in a shallow grave in his backyard. Weeks later, he exhumed the body and poured acid on it to strip the flesh. Fact 7: He had a fascination for dead things as a child. Dahmer first collected insects and butterflies. Later, he turned to collecting raw dead and always kept the carcasses in jars after dismembering them because he was fascinated by the way the pieces fit together. Fact 8: Jeffrey Dahmer was obsessed with bones. When Jeff was 4 years old, his father excavated and removed the bones of a dead animal from under the family home. Jeff then acquired a bizarre obsession with the sound bones made and began collecting and toying with bones, according to his father. After that, He would frequently try to find more bones in and around the house where he was raised. Fact 9. Dahmer was an alcoholic. He struggled with alcoholism at a very young age, and he would smuggle alcohol to school. He studied at River High School in Richfield, where he participated in extracurricular activities, and his teachers observed him to be polite and highly intelligent. He kept alcohol in his locker and could drink it, and when asked by classmates he would say it is his medicine. Fact 10. He was a predator in the U.S. Army. After graduation and his first killing, he enrolled in Ohio State University to major in business and dropped out 3 months into his first semester due to alcoholism. Due to his father's encouragement, he joined the U.S. Army and trained as a medical specialist at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, Texas. Two soldiers claimed to be raped by Dahmer during his time present, but was discharged from the Army in March of 1981 due to alcoholism. Fact 11. Dahmer exposed himself to children at a park. Within 2 weeks of Dahmer returning home, he was arrested for alcoholism, and his father decided to send him to his grandmother in West Allis as he no longer knew how to help him. However, his drinking never subsided, as a few months later Dahmer was arrested for indecent exposure on August 7, 1982 for exposing himself to a group of women and children at the park. He spent the majority of the next few years unemployed until he was employed at the Ambrosia Chocolate Factory. Fact 12. He tried to steal a corpse. Dahmer read an obituary in the newspaper, "The Man Who Could Not Kill Enough" by Annie Schwartz, for a recently deceased man. He later admitted to having attempted to dig up the grave but gave up because the ground was too hard for him. His motivation for wanting to dig out the remains was not revealed, but it is clear that he wanted to expand his collection of remains, as we've discovered that he was weirdly obsessed with bones. Fact 13. Jeffrey Dahmer lied about masturbating in front of children. In 1986, Dahmer was arrested for masturbating in front of children, but he claimed that he was urinating, and his charge was changed to disorderly conduct. This is quite weird in that how would anyone of a sane mind go and urinate where the children are watching? His actions do not align with his claims, and the local authorities should have investigated his claims deeper, as they do not add up. Fact 14. He had a routine for how he lured, murdered, disposed of, and kept the bodies of his victims. Dahmer would lure them to his home with offers of money for sex or money for private photo shoots. He would drug, rape, and kill his male victims. He would remove the bones from the body by either using acid or cutting the flesh from the bones. Then he would either smash the bones and scatter them or discard them. However, Dahmer always kept the skull of his victims. According to the journal Times, Dahmer stated that it was a way of remembering their appearances, and if he could not keep them there, he could keep their skeletons. Fact 15. Suspected of killing Adam Walsh. After he was discharged from the military, he decided to move to Miami instead of returning home to Ohio. He worked in a deli but ended up homeless. When news of his crimes came out, witnesses who allegedly saw him at Florida's Hollywood Mall where little Adam Walsh went missing started reporting. He, however, denied any involvement with Walsh's murder. Fact 16. He enjoyed having sex with people who did not give their consent. Jeffrey Dahmer revealed that he enjoyed having sex with non-consenting partners, as they did not move much like consenting partners. Jeffrey Dahmer frequented gay bars where he picked up men that he would come home with and then have sex with. He revealed that he did not like sex with these men as they moved too much during intercourse, and it frustrated him greatly. To ensure that his partners were not moving while having intercourse, Dahmer started lacing their drinks with sedatives and then proceeded to rape them while they were unconscious. This resulted in several complaints from his victims, and Dahmer's membership in bathhouses was revoked. This move did not deter H, as he continued with his disgusting behavior in hotel rooms. Fact 17. He had a mannequin while living with his grandmother. Jeffrey Dahmer stole a mannequin from a local store so that he could use it to satisfy his sexual urges. When his grandmother found out that he had the mannequin, she forced him to throw it away. His use of a mannequin to satisfy his sexual urges can be attributed to the fact that he did not like his partners moving, and therefore, the mannequin was perfect for him as it did not move. Fact 18. He once took a human head to work while working in the chocolate factory. Jeffrey Dahmer once took a human head to work. His sinister private life had overlapped with his work life, and thus prompted him to take the mummified head to work. In an interview after he was arrested, he claimed that the compulsion was too strong and that he had the urge to keep something of the victim with him at all times. Fact 19. He was fascinated with The Exorcist III and Star Wars. The serial killer urges are hard to explain the urges that prompted him to go on a killing spree. Dahmer hyped himself into killing someone by watching specific movies. He reveled in the evilness of the Emperor in Return of the Jedi, even going so far as to wear yellow contact lenses to embody the Star Wars villain. Dahmer was also obsessed with The Exorcist III, a film about a supernatural serial killer. One victim who escaped accounts that he remembers seeing The Exorcist III playing in the background. Fact 20. He planned to build an altar with his victims after being arrested. Jeffrey Dahmer confessed that he had planned to create an altar in his house with the remains of his victims. This is a quite chilling and sinister admission, as it is hard to comprehend why someone would want to create an altar using human remains. The serial killer was very serious about the project that he had even created a sketch of how the altar was going to look. The sketch featured a black table that was fitted with skulls and surrounded by skeletons. Jeffrey planned for the altar to be a place where he meditated. Fact 21. He was caught by the police and managed to get away. Dahmer once drugged a boy known as St. Hassamphone intending to rape him, but he was unsuccessful as the young man was found on the streets dazed and disoriented by 3 women who called the police. When questioned, Dahmer managed to convince the police that they were drunk and had just had a couple's fight. The women who had called the police did not believe the story, but the local authorities did not see anything wrong with his story and even went to the extent of accompanying them to Dahmer's apartment. Fact 22. He tried to make his victims zombies. The serial killer was involved in many sinister acts that one would not imagine anyone would do. Dahmer wanted to subjugate his victims, and this is evident when he drilled a hole in Errol Lindsay's skull, who was a teenager that he had managed to lure into his apartment. Jeffrey poured hydrochloric acid into the hole he had drilled in her skull. He thought that in doing so, the girl would turn into a docile zombie. Surprisingly, the girl survived the ordeal and woke up complaining that her head was aching. Jeffrey went on and strangled her. He also did the same experiment on another victim known as Conric St. Hassamphone, but he survived and even managed to escape when Dahmer had gone to buy alcohol. Dahmer, however, caught up with him and with the help of the police brought him back to his apartment and killed him. Fact 23. It is believed that a surgery he underwent while still a child may have changed his personality after being born. Jeffrey Dahmer had problems with his legs and did not have mobility for them until he was 4 months old. This can be attributed to the fact that while pregnant, his mother was taking medications for a health issue. When he was 4 years old, young Dahmer underwent surgery that aimed to repair the double hernia in his scrotum. The surgery may have traumatized the child, as he believed that his genitals had been cut off and was even shy after the surgery. Clinical psychologist Judith Becker, who examined the serial killer before his trial, believes that the event laid a foundation for how he turned out later in life. Fact 24. His victim count was at 17 when he was arrested. At the time of his arrest, Jeffrey Dahmer's victim count was quite high, as he had killed 17 people before he was apprehended. He targeted men who were vulnerable and would not be noticed that they were missing, like drug dealers, hitchhikers, and runaways. He killed his first victim in the basement of his grandmother's house without her knowledge, but she soon kicked him out as he came home drunk. Fact 25. He viewed people as objects. Jeffrey Dahmer had an unhealthy obsession with bones and body parts, which led to depersonalization. This meant that he began viewing people as mere objects. By doing so, it meant that he did not care about the pain that they would feel when he attacked his victims, as he had distanced himself from these emotions and therefore did not feel empathy. His depersonalization technique meant that he could torture the victims and dissect the body parts without feeling any remorse. Fact 26. He had a sinister Polaroid collection. After killing his victim, Jeffrey Dahmer would take pictures of the victim's body at different states of dismemberment. This was a gruesome and sinister sight, as the photos show what the victims went through at the hands of this sinister killer. When asked about it, Dahmer claimed that it was his way of remembering the beauty of his victims. Fact 27. There was a foul smell in his apartment. The smell emanating from Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment was one of the selling factors that led to him being found. Jeffrey Dahmer's neighbors described him as someone who was withdrawn and shy and thus did not interact with him. However, they started to notice a weird smell coming from his house. This was because Dahmer had wrapped his victims' body parts in plastic bags and stored them in the fridge. This was quite unusual, as most serial killers keep some pieces of clothing as souvenirs from their victims and dispose of the body in an effort to mask the smell. Fact 28. Jeffrey Dahmer's family enabled him. Dahmer was able to continue terrorizing people and claiming so many lives because his family enabled him. This is because every time he was arrested and charged with minor charges like indecent public exposure, his father would rush to his side and hire a private attorney to defend him in court. This meant that he would get lenient punishments. Furthermore, his grandmother allowed him to stay at her house, where he would commit heinous crimes under her roof. Fact 29. He was on a blackout when he went on a murder spree while committing some of his crimes. Jeffrey Dahmer was not in his right mind. He even confessed that he does not remember killing one of his first victims, known as Stephen Twomey. He only said that he recalls going to bed and waking up the next morning with a corpse that had been brutalized. He also did his killings when he was drunk, as that was the only time that he lost his natural inhibitions and could act on his urges. Fact 30. He retained his sense of humor even while in prison. A former prison guard minister known as Roy Ratcliffe revealed to CNN in an interview that the serial killer remained with his sense of humor and that Dahmer would tell the guards that he bites just to see a reaction from them. He also took his food and shaped them to look like human limbs, and then add ketchup to look like severed limbs and leave it out for the other inmates to find.